Hey guys, it's carsonmtech here, back with another video, and in today's video we are going to be checking out the Panasonic G85. So along with unboxing this, I'm also going to be testing it out and comparing it to my current G7, which is what this is being filmed on right now. And this is basically the bigger brother of that, so that's why I'll be doing that. And also, I'm going to just be overall reviewing this camera in this video. So anyways, let's actually get to checking this out. So before actually getting into the unboxing of this, I just want to mention that I bought this as a kit for $1,000, and it came with a lot of cool things. I'm just going to be unboxing this, but I wanted to mention the extra stuff that came with this because I'm going to be leaving the link to the kit below because I thought overall it was a great deal. And in this kit, it came with a 128 gigabyte SanDisk Extreme card, bendable tripod, a Rode Video Micro, 2 extra batteries plus a charger for those, some extra lenses here, and lastly, to hold everything, a giant camera bag. It's actually not that big, but it is pretty decent size, and I'm going to definitely be using this. But anyways, let's push that aside and actually get into checking this out. So on the box here, as you can see, it is the camera itself, and it looks very similar to the G7, which I find awesome because it will be very familiar to me and I'll be able to pick up on it quickly. But there are some minuscule body differences on it that I will mention later. But anyways, some other things on the box that are most interesting is here. It has 16 megapixel camera for some great stills. It has a movable LCD screen, which is very high quality. Has dual image stabilization, and what dual image stabilization is it combines both the lens stabilization and in-body image stabilization to actually stabilize the image, and the results are stunning. I will be showing that later in the video, but that is a really great feature of this camera. And that's one of the main reasons why I actually chose to purchase this, even though I have a perfectly fine working G7 right now, but that's one of the main reasons. The G85 is now splash and dust proof. It's not necessarily waterproof, but it is water resistant to the point where you won't have to worry about your equipment becoming damaged in outdoor environments. And a couple other things that they think are notable, but that is pretty much it for that. So let's actually get to popping open this box. Of course, has some instructions that I will probably never even touch. The first thing that you will probably notice when you open up the box is the camera body itself, but I'm not going to be opening this right now, so I'm going to set this aside. Below that is the shoulder strap. Over here is a lens hood for the included 12 to 60 millimeter lens, which is a great lens that it comes with because just purchasing this lens usually costs around like $400. Over here on the top right side, you will find both the battery and the battery charger. Also over here, you will find a micro USB cable, and this is for plugging directly into the camera when you have to firmware update or something like that. And that is all you will find in this box. So let's just slide that aside and actually pull out this camera body to check it out. So there you go. Sleek looking body. This is very similar if you own a G7 or have seen it in the past. This looks very similar, but some of the most notable features right now that I just like to point out is Panasonic opted to move the SD card door to the right side of the handle, which is amazing. It is so annoying having to go and open up the bottom door here on my G7 always to access my SD card, because when it's on a tripod or something like that, it can get a little bit frustrating because sometimes you have to unscrew the plate if you're using a plate on a tripod. So this is what that looks like now. But speaking of the bottom here, you'll notice that this also looks different. So here, they changed the way that the battery door opens here, which is great because this also will likely not interfere anymore when you have this mounted on a tripod, because you'll be able to just directly open up the battery door and you'll be able to access the battery for quick replacements of batteries. On this battery door, they have a little piece of plastic that can be peeled up, and that gives you access for direct connection to power or in place of a battery. And this right here is just a power port to use with the battery grip for this camera. A couple more things here that they have changed on the body include on the right knob over here, they have actually added a second custom location to program things on, program your settings and stuff. They also changed the way that this looks to the G7. I prefer this a lot more than the G7. This just looks more sturdy here, and it has a much more satisfying movement when you are moving it. Lastly, one of the biggest things that they have changed with this camera is the side. So they have chosen to move all of the ports over to the left-hand side now, and they relocated which is maybe great for some people, but one thing that I don't really like with this change is the fact that they have such a large piece of rubber here when you're plugging in your mic, because now this large piece of plastic will be just waving around when you are filming and have an external mic plugged in, because the internal audio of this is not very good. But one other thing that they actually added is this little finger hook here that you can use to pull out the screen, which is amazing because on the G7 all you had was the top and bottom, so it's nice to have this over here just to quick pull out the screen. So now that I've went over some of the differences between this and the G7, I'm gonna go way more in depth in a future video. So if you want to see a video comparing the G7 and the G85, then make sure to subscribe for that. But I'm gonna go and throw the lens on here, and let's go outside to test out the video quality and photo quality. So let's go. Alright, so now that I'm outside, I would like to first just mention a couple of the settings that I ended up changing in order to get the autofocus on this thing to be the greatest that it probably possibly can be. Changing these settings doesn't get the autofocus perfect, but it does dramatically improve the autofocus from out of the box. So in total, I changed 5 different things, starting off with quick autofocus. I changed that from off to on in tab 2, page 2 of settings. I changed pinpoint autofocus time from mid to short on tab 2, page 2. I changed autofocus sensitivity from plus or minus 0 to plus 2 in tab 2, page 3. And on the body of the camera, I have the focus set to AFC, which means autofocus continuous. And lastly, if you press FN2 and go to the AF mode, I found that the face/eye detection mode works pretty well for vlogging, but 49 area also works well for that or other forms of filming. These aren't all the settings that I changed overall, but they are the ones that I changed to help overall the autofocus of this camera. So now that we have talked about that, how about some of the features of this camera? Starting with the video side, the camera can shoot crisp 4K at both 24 frames per second and 30 frames per second, and with 1080p Full HD, it can shoot at both of those frame rates as well, along with 60 frames per second. For this video, I'm only going to be shooting in 4K 30, so I can show the full capabilities of this camera, but if you're not shooting in that, I just wanted to mention the other frame rates that it can film with. If you're wanting to hear what the audio sounds like directly from this camera, well then, here you go. It definitely does not sound that great, especially in the wind right now. It picks up a lot of wind noise, and it's just generally not that great. So if you're going to be shooting a lot of video with this, then I would highly suggest purchasing and investing in a microphone such as the Rode View Micro, which I'm using. Very budget friendly and overall just works really great all the time, so I would highly suggest getting that. The 4K footage that comes out of this guy is absolutely stunning, and with the combination of in-body image stabilization and optical image stabilization to form what Panasonic calls dual image stabilization, the videos taken from the G85 remain incredibly steady compared to what the G7 and other cameras look like. Along with that dual image stabilization, Panasonic has also added a mode called E-stabilization, which can be added on top of the dual image stabilization, and what it does is it basically crops in a bit similar to what your video editing software does, and it stabilizes the video from within that crop. I haven't been able to find too much difference in the video quality of the G85 and the G7, but if there is any difference at all, it is very minor. The only department that I think that the G85 may be in the lead for is in the sharpness of the video quality. And the main reason for this is the lack of an anti-aliasing filter that is not in this camera. So with the G7 actually has an anti-aliasing filter, and generally, if there's not an anti-aliasing filter, the image quality is sharper, and that is good, but it's also bad because I've noticed just filming the balcony here at my hotel, I've gotten some artifacts from the lack of the anti-aliasing filter from the G85, whereas the G7 does not have that problem. Anyways, moving on to the photos that you can get out of this camera, I personally have really liked the photos that I've been able to get with this, especially with the image stabilization. You can get incredibly sharp photos. There isn't really much else to say about the photos that you can get out of this thing, so I'm just going to let it up to you, and so you guys can see how this actually looks yourself. Here is a little montage of some of the favorite photos that I've gotten out of the G85 so far. So not everything is perfect about this camera because it definitely does have its downsides, and one of the most notable problems that I've noticed with it, with the experience that I've had in just the past couple of days, is this screen. And that problem is if you have a microphone plugged in or literally anything else plugged in here on the side, you won't be able to flip your screen while it's flat out to the side. You'll have to end up moving it back and turn it, which isn't that big of a deal, but considering I've come from a G7 which did not have this problem, it is quite annoying having to relearn the flipping of your screen. And in general, I don't think Panasonic thought that out very well, because just even the microphone, if the microphone jack would have been moved up just a bit more, then this problem wouldn't have existed. So that's one of the biggest problems. So another problem that also involves the screen is one that I mentioned back with my G7 review, which has to do with when you are taking photos and your screen is facing towards you, and if your nose manages to hit the screen, then you are gonna have problems with the autofocus just going where your nose tapped on the screen, because there's the tap to focus. And generally, I just wish Panasonic would go and have an option to have the screen shut off when you are taking photos and you are looking through the viewfinder, but that does not happen for some reason, even though the screen goes black. So that's a little annoying, and I just wanted to say that I know people have mentioned in the past, just flip your screen around and it will solve all your problems, but I have tried that and it really is quite annoying when you're taking a lot of photos and you just want to see how the photos are turning out. You don't want to go through the big deal of flipping your screen all the time just to check the photos, so that is not really a solution. I wish Panasonic would just make it so then the actual touch functionality shuts off of the screen when you are looking through the viewfinder. And one final problem that I have found with this camera is the battery life. Now, I realize there is the image stabilization in this thing, which definitely consumes quite a bit more battery life than with the G7 that does not have that, but I'm pretty sure the biggest reason for battery drain in this thing is due to the fact that the auto standby time for the G85 is incredibly long. I have noticed just vlogging that the camera does not shut off nearly as fast as what the G7 did, and I have dug through the settings and I have not been able to find anything to change the time for which the camera takes to go to sleep. So if you have a solution to changing this auto standby / sleep, then make sure to let me know down in the comments below, because I would love to shorten that in order to have a greater battery life on this camera. Now to the big question, would I recommend this camera to you? Is it worth the $1,000 over the $500 G7? I've got to say that the image stabilization, the in-body, and the lens combined, including that e-stabilization, which I'm not sure I'm going to use all the time, but it does work really well. I would say that those are absolutely amazing features, along with the weatherproofed body. I was shooting outside earlier today while it was still raining a bit, and I didn't have to worry about my equipment being damaged, whereas with other cameras, you may have to deal with that because not a lot of cameras have weatherproof bodies, so it's great having that on this. And one more thing that this has over the G7 is the autofocus is slightly better, but it's still not anywhere close to what Canon cameras are. But I do have to say now that if you are shooting in 1080p on this camera, the autofocus is so much better. I don't know why their autofocus is so terrible in 4K, but in 1080p, the autofocus is pretty similar to Canon cameras. It works really well. But in 4K, which I always shoot in, it's not that great. If you are not needing the aforementioned features, then I would definitely say that purchasing a G7, which is what's filming this right now, is a probably better deal for you, because you'll be able to go and purchase other lenses with that extra $500 that you would have spent on the G85. And one other thing that I'd have to say for me personally, if I was choosing between the G7 and the G85, is if you are a person who likes to future-proof your equipment, then I highly recommend getting the 85. It is a newer camera than the G7, so I would say that that is probably a good enough reason in itself to spend the extra $500 in order to get the G85 over the G7. So anyways guys, that's pretty much it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you would like to purchase the G85 yourself, then consider purchasing through one of my affiliate links down in the description. Those help to support me with no extra cost to you guys, so that'd be awesome if you purchased from there. But anyways, if you like this video, make sure to let me know by clicking that thumbs up button down below, and also if you want to see future videos from me, click that subscribe button down below. If you'd like to check out some of my other videos, click one of those over there, and check me out on some other social media down there. But anyways guys, that is pretty much it for this video. See you guys in the next one. Peace.